How you doing, guys? It's Yussef Diaz. I'm gonna do a live interview with Canada's top expert on baseball. His name is Phil Seelig. Does great videos. Is probably the most informed person in Canada on Cuban baseball. I usually do everything in Spanish. I'm gonna do it in English today. We're gonna talk about an array of topics, and let's see. I'm just waiting on Phil. All my people, I usually, like I said, hey, Will, how you doing, Will? Action Sports Montreal, how you doing? Ruby, ¿cómo está mi hermano? I usually do everything in Spanish, but today it's going to be in English due to the fact that Phil doesn't really speak Spanish. We're just waiting on Phil. As soon as Phil sends me the invite, we're going to talk about an array of things on Cuban baseball. There goes Phil right there. He's going to send me the invite. Wait, let's go. Hey, Phil, what's up?
Can you hear me now?
Hear you perfectly, brother. What's going on, my brother?
Oh, well, we're just getting ready for, actually, let me see if I can find a good spot to keep this. One sec. Just getting ready for our version of
Cuban baseball. Yeah, no, I already told the people that they used to hear me talking. Got it upside down, Phil. You look upside down.
For the love of Pete.
No, I tell them that they used to hear me talking Spanish. We're going to talk the Queen's English today.
There we go.
Phil.
Yeah, well, we had some technical difficulties there. Give me 1 second.
Sure,
Bear
sure.
with me for one
No
split
problem,
second
Phil.
here.
No
I
problem.
might have a solution here. Sorry, my headphones are plugged into the bottom of the phone there.
No problem. I was telling them that you're Canada's top expert on Cuban baseball.
Well, we'll put that to the test today and see if that means anything.
It means something. It means something. I mean, I've seen your work and I approve of it, and we're pretty good when it comes to Cuban baseball.
Oh, for the love of Pete. Okay. All right. Bear with me, people here. This is actually probably going to bother. It's probably going to bother me more as a quote unquote professional cameraman. So I'm not used to this. Just my headphones are plugged into the bottom of the phone there, so I can't actually sit anywhere. But yeah, we're tomorrow is Canada Day. It's our version of the 4th of July. So it's a holiday, even though. Don't want to call it a holiday for the past bunch of months, but doesn't feel like much has been achieved anyway. So, but luckily we're starting to open some things back up and
no,
allowed to.
In Miami, we're open, man. Our governor doesn't care. Well, in fact, where I live, 33012 is in Florida. It's in Hialeah, Florida. Probably has the biggest rate of infection in the whole country. But we'll talk about MLB in a few. But let's talk about your baseball. The Can-Am merged with the Frontier League. But
Correct.
from what I'm being told, there's going to be no season this year. There's supposed to be a spectacular league, 14 teams.
Yeah. Well, so when you look at what happened there, the bad news was coming into the season that Ottawa wasn't going to have a team anyway. Yeah. So I was going to have to travel if I did. I was going to have to travel, but was hoping to get to Quebec City and see the Capitals there, as they were planning to bring in a couple Cuban players. And I think it was Uelke and Uelke's. Yeah.
Guibert.
Yeah. Yeah, Uelke's Guibert, which is the most French sounding Cuban name I've heard, so he might have fit in perfectly there. So
no, he's from the Eastern Province. He could be of. There's a lot of people of Haitian descent there.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, he's probably that.
Yeah, so I was looking forward to that, and potentially getting back down to Kitchener to see the Kitchener Panthers, of course.
Mike told me earlier. Mike Bomer told me earlier there's going to be no season in there.
They know.
Teams, right?
Yeah, so the issue that they kind of run into, and you'll see probably with a lot of the independent leagues, is that obviously
Depends
even
on
to play
funding.
a shortened season is very tough because they rely heavily on sponsors, not necessarily on attendance and gate. So I guess the positive of anything was that they were able to cancel it early enough that they're not really out of pocket. It's just obviously the fact that the
There's no
season's
league.
lost and we're not going to get to see, not going to get to see some great Cuban talent closer to the
Yoki's
GTA.
probably
So
he's the future center fielder for the national team. He's going to replace
yeah,
Royal Santos. But
yeah, he's looked good a couple times. He was
oh,
here in Ottawa
great ball
last
player,
year,
good kid too.
and
Very,
yep,
very,
seemed pretty mild mannered
very good kid.
and
Very shy.
well. So good or bad, he hit the only home run for the
Yeah,
national
I
team
saw
while
that.
they were here. But which
I
it's not an indictment on him, maybe on the power of the squad that did show up. But
well,
so
they were missing a few players. They were missing
mhm.
Despain. They were missing Gracia. They were missing Roel. So that's a lot of power. The only power they had besides him, which he's not really a power hitter, he's more of a slap hitter, was your Danny Samon. I'm surprised.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
he didn't hit a home run, but
no, Simone
Alarcon too.
actually hit all right, and Alarcon he started a couple of the games, then they mixed in. That actually no, he got most of the reps there. So yeah, it wasn't at least when they were in Ottawa, wasn't a big
Yeah,
power
Frank
performance. Philippe
Frank would have got more.
Beaumont, who just
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
Frank would have got more play. Remember, he was recovering from that thrombosis that he had in his throwing arm.
Yeah,
He's fully
yeah,
recovered now.
Frank Morillon got into to finish off defensively one of the games there. Unfortunately, didn't get any bats while I was here, but did get to chat with him and
Well,
with a few of the guys.
well,
But
Frank's actually a good friend of ours. So
yeah,
anytime I see Frank, it's good. I always talk to him, sit down, and have a nice conversation with him. But
sorry if I seem half distracted here. My dog just came
no,
down.
that's cool. That's cool. I'm at home too, relaxing.
Yeah.
I'm having me a little drink while we're talking. What was I gonna tell you? All right, what do you think about the 60 game season?
So for Major League
Yeah,
Baseball, I've honestly tried not to. I'm quite frankly a little bit amazed how they've had such a public spat. It's almost as if
like the strike
the
zone,
entire the negotiation has been in the public eye, and I don't know why they allowed that to happen.
like a bunch of little kids arguing.
Um, yeah, it's and I don't think anybody wins in
The
this,
fans lose.
but
The fans
the
lose.
fans definitely lose, especially when you think that with everything that's going on, obviously there's more
All
important
right.
issues in the world. But if baseball could be that escape, it would be fantastic. And if they had done this properly,
I'm
so
gonna
but
run down a few key stats about Cuban
yep,
players. All right, it's gonna first it's gonna be a 60 game season. Camp start the 1st of
mm-hmm,
July. The season
yep,
starts the 23rd of July. The playoffs start the 29th of September, and the World Series the 20th of October. Okay, absent from 60-man squads are
mm-hmm,
these big names. You got Rusney Castillo, who should be there. I don't know. But one that really, really makes me scratch my head is why Yasmani Tomas, with the inclusion of the DH in both leagues, is not there. There has to be something
mm-hmm,
behind that. Also, Victor Mesa was left off
yep.
the squads. What's your take on that, brother?
So obviously, keeping a close eye. I always try to keep a close eye on the guys that I've met personally and done some photo and video for, and the guys that are sending. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see that Victor was left off.
I mean, a lot of prospects ahead
Um,
of him, though.
yeah, and so whether or not they must have another plan. Although I mean, you've been to
Yeah,
Jupiter
well,
as well and
we,
seen.
we, we've been to Jupiter.
Yeah,
We,
yeah, and
we went
seen
last year.
seen the camp. So I don't know if what they're thinking with the younger prospects, that
I
basically they're just
mean,
going to have like a
I'm
super camp and treat it like extended A or the extended spring training.
I'm gonna tell you the
But yeah,
truth. I
it's
think the Marlins have given up on him because you got ahead of him. You got Jesus Sanchez as a super prospect.
mhm,
You got Gerard Encarnacion, and you got who's there. If they put Jonathan VR, who was supposed to be the second baseman in center field,
mhm,
that means they have no faith in him or Lewis Brinson. Now, I got three prospects here that could. Well, Rangel Ravelo is going to be the DH for St. Louis, barring any injury. But Yadier Hernandez and Miguel Romero might make their major league debuts. Yadier's a hell of a hitter. He's
Yeah, I think that there's no doubt that I think the rope is or the leash is going to be a little bit tighter with what they do. This might hurt Victor's status there because this was hopefully going to be a make or break year. He performed better in the Arizona Fall League. It looked like it rebounded a little bit.
I wrote an article about it. And then he came to camp in spring training and he basically laid an egg, man. He basically laid an egg.
So it's unfortunate. Like I said, I think he's still young enough, and obviously they've invested the money in him.
It was all talent in the world. Defense, he's major league caliber. It's his hitting, and
we've seen.
And not to be hard on him, he did work hard. So I've seen him work hard this offseason with Ricardo Sosa, who's a great instructor. But the swing is too flat. I think Victor Jr. has more upside than he does.
Well, so for the simple fact that being a few years younger, being left-handed, and having that instant success, so I mean, he put up impressive numbers. Yeah, and he definitely put up impressive numbers in as the youngest in the Gulf Coast there, and people should look up. I was impressed with his plate discipline, that he
walked
pretty close to as often as he struck out for a 17-year-old playing in his first pro season is pretty impressive.
In Cuba, he led the juvenile league in hits and in batting average. He was also a fixture on the juvenile national team, and he has more. Okay, when we talk about builds, Victor is not built like his father. Victor Jr. looks more like Victor Mesa, who, if people don't know, would have been the equivalent to having Ricky Henderson, the Cuban Ricky Henderson. That's what I want to look at.
And
yeah,
in playing style and in some ways in demeanor as well. So definitely excitable.
A big spark. Speaking about more in the independent leagues, the American Association is going to play. They're going to have 60 games, 30 home, 30 road. They're going to have 25% of the stands filled, and it'll finish September 10th. Now, it's only going to be 6 teams. 6 of the 12 teams will play. They had a dispersal draft. You have one big Cuban name there, which is Alay Lago, who led the American Association in hitting last year. He's returning to Sioux Falls, the Canaries. Now, Atlantic League, nothing. 70 games have been proposed, but nothing yet. What do you think about what's going to happen to all these players that don't have jobs because of this pandemic? Are they going to be doing Uber? What are they going to be doing?
It's going to be tough. Obviously, a lot of things have been going on the labor front, and it sounds funny to incorporate independent in that. I have kind of a working theory that part of the reason why Major League Baseball feels confident enough that they're going to be shedding 42 teams, isn't it, from the structure?
No, 60. 60.
Okay, 60. Yeah. So I think that what they figure will happen is they'll be able to, enough of those teams will want to jump into to independent leagues, although obviously they all won't. Pick a percentage that would be feasible for that. So obviously, we're going to lose baseball and jobs in a certain number of spots.
My question is, we could have followed the example of the Asian leagues. Look at Taiwan, which is probably the lowest percentage of COVID infections in the world. And it's actually if China tells you they're part of China, where the pandemic started. Taiwan started playing without fans, and then they started with the artificial noise. And the league, the quality of the league is not Major League, it's not even Japan, but it's still a good league. And then Korea, which is a pretty decent league, which our good friend Jose Miguel is killing. He leads the league in average and in hits. And then Japan basically followed. So why can't we follow that example?
Well, so in terms of that, I think if you look at it, I've had this discussion with people, and it might sound funny as a Canadian talking about some of this, that obviously states' rights play a big portion of it. So individual states being able to make the decisions that they will. There has been talk that individual states, even so, both on the independent and on the major league level, are discussing different versions of the way to do that. So I've heard specifically that Illinois and Chicago are looking at, or at least it's been rumored that they may allow 20% of the fans in.
Here in Miami, nothing. In fact,
Yeah.
Miami as press, I'm already telling you because I'm going to be at the stadium. As press, I have to, if I want to interview a player, it has to be like this. I have to Zoom them. We're going to be allowed in the press box. We're going to be allowed in the stadium. There's going to be no crowd, which is pretty bad.
Well, so there's debate over what's going to happen for the Jays in Toronto specifically, because right now anything, I mean, cross-border travel, and you probably know better than this in
Yes.
the industry that you work in,
Yes.
is still occurring by flights, but
we're actually open. The United States is open. Other countries are not open. I don't know if Canada's open. At the airport, I've seen plenty of flights from the United States, but like Cuba's not open yet. Dominican Republic's not open yet. Certain Caribbean countries are not open yet. Cuba won't open. I was talking to Frederick Cepeda a few days ago. He says he's expecting a season in September.
So yeah, the dates that have been released, they're doing a multi-stage plan to reopen. I'm hoping to. I'm hoping as soon as Havana opens up.
I'm thinking January. Why don't you wait till January and we can meet up over there? Because I was gonna go in July, but my passport's still not here. You know, everything's closed.
If things worked out properly, and I'm hoping. So their planned opening is tomorrow. Supposed to be the major resorts, Veradero and Hoagine and whatnot.
For, people inside
for international. No, for international as well. They supposedly are allowing Canadian. No, August is Havana. So and major centers. So my understanding is starting tomorrow they'll allow direct flights, to some of the bigger tourist centers. They're not allowing interprovincial travel just yet. So mid-month that's supposed to open, and then Havana is supposed to open up in August with the ambition that, and they just announced that the 75 game Cuban National Series, the 60th, will start on September the 12th.
And no Caribbean World Series this year for Cuba because they shot themselves in the foot last year.
Well, yeah, so they were kind of forced out last year, as it were, and I think that's why they've pivoted.
I mean, they really forced themselves out because they were told to get the visas early, and they never did. And then the thing is with Cuba, they live shooting themselves in the foot. They insulted Mr. Puello, who's the head of the CBPC, who's the biggest advocate for Cuba, and he says the book is closed on Cuba. So until Cuba's actually allowed to get membership there, they're not going to play in the Caribbean World Series.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and so if people are aware, they had kind of pivoted that the original plan for the series before coronavirus kind of obviously put a cramp in everyone's plans for the year, was to have a 75 game first phase,
and then have that winter
with
league.
8 teams, and then have a 50 game second phase. So 125 games. Closer to the structure we've seen over the past few years, where at that division point that they would send out, the dispersal draft. And
I was conversing with Joel Garcia Leon, who's a good friend of mine. You know Joel? He's I
think we've
for Trabajadores. He's the main editor there. Joel was telling me that the Winter League is supposed to be called the Cuban Professional Baseball League, which is going to be like the old selective series, but you're going to have strong teams. But the problem is now that structure was supposed to translate into the Caribbean World Series. But with the going-ons that they had, it's not going to translate there anymore. Cuba might have to play, if they have one, which I doubt they will this year, in the other series that included Nicaragua. And included, what's it called? The Latin American series. Which
Yeah,
is
so
it's
they
not bad baseball either.
because they did they had basically a friendly series. They pivoted quickly just to be able to get some games in
Yeah,
because
that was
also
terrible
I mean
baseball.
as you're aware that Cuba was trying to qualify for the Olympics as well
Well,
and the World Baseball Classic, although I think they're automatically
no,
grandfathered into the
they're automatically
WBC.
grandfathered in
But
because they didn't lose any.
yeah,
The only teams that have to qualify are teams that didn't win any games in the World Baseball Classic. Cuba won two. Uh, I'm hearing rumblings from Havana from a lot of good sources that they will allow for the Olympic qualification because they figured out that they need their players from in the exterior. They will allow players non-affiliated with Cuba with MLB to play. For example, Diane Biziato,
Viciedo.
Jose Miguel Fernandez, Ariel Miranda, uh, players that they have playing in the Asian leagues and in Mexico. Your Yunieski Mayes, your Felix Perez's, people like that is going to be allowed to incorporate on that team.
And that's interesting. I mean, I think there is a recognition, and we've seen some of it start to happen with Ero Borena and Leslie Anderson being able to repatriate. Now, make an argument whether or not that's because they were kind of at the end of their
I mean,
professional options to get paid, and
Lorena, he could have been a major league ball player. He went back because he had no he burned a lot of bridges. Leslie's at the end of his career, but they need to revitalize that whole structure. You shouldn't have to play a provincial series. You shouldn't have to repatriate. You should just be allowed to play for the team. And see, the thing is that MLB doesn't bar players from playing in Cuba. Cuba bars players from playing Cuba for the World Baseball Classic. MLB, in fact, MLB by World Baseball Classic standards, Nolan Arenado is allowed to play for Cuba because his father's Cuban. In fact, you just have to have a parent that's a resident of that country to be able to play.
well, yeah, we've seen that with
Puerto Rico,
obviously with the Italian team,
yeah.
and
Israel,
they've taken some and who actually it's so what 3 teams have qualified for the Olympics. Sorry to pivot slightly,
yeah.
and it's I think it's Japan, Mexico, and the baseball powerhouse that is Israel.
Yeah. Well, Israel
but
is
they,
a team.
yeah, but they won their qualifying bracket, which was considered actually I think part of Africa, which was again
Israel beat Cuba
fascinating. But
in the World Baseball Classic. Because the thing is with Israel that they had a lot of players that are ex MLB players or actual prospects. For example, Italy almost beat the Dominican Republic in the 2013 Classic. They lost 4-3. They were 5-4 I think, but they were winning 4-0. So
it's yeah. So in a regard, it's good that the world is obviously opening up to baseball at large.
awesome.
You see it. I'm sure.
Okay.
There's always the sentiment, and specifically in the Cuban vein. For once, I do think that there is some progressive thought coming out of there that they realize changes have to be made. But
Yes, but
hey,
until
you know how long that takes. So.
until you get rid of somebody like Eugenio Velez, right? You're not going to advance. For example, I'm not a pro Castro advocate, right? And you know that me being from Miami, but I think Tony Castro would run that a whole lot better. And I'm gonna get killed for this, for saying it on live. I think Tony Castro would fit that model a lot better than Eugenio Velez. He's a lot more open to the Western world than Eugenio Velez.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of that sentiment, and I know some of the people that are working underneath, like I said, are kind of progressive, and there are changes that are occurring, so that is positive. It's just a matter of, like you say, it takes a long time with anything.
They need to speed up the changes,
on the island.
They need to speed up. The thing is that they always investigate stuff and they look at it in a way that they want to benefit them. They need to stop thinking like that and think about it's going to benefit baseball in Cuba, because baseball in Cuba is dying. And even our friend, the late Peter Bajartman, God rest his soul. And you know, me and Peter didn't see eye to eye on anything, but we still respected each other.
Yeah.
Peter even saw it.
Yeah, and so actually, if I can give a little bit of a shout out there, and
Yeah, God rest his soul.
so I did read his books recently, and so I think I'd mentioned to you as well that for anybody that has the opportunity should at least pick it
No,
up.
he's a talented writer.
I know,
I agree.
yeah,
I agree.
I sense myself that he and I probably weren't completely politically simpatico, although I wonder kind of who is in today's world anyway.
Yeah.
But do have to give credit that he's chronicled
No, he's a very
some good
talented writer.
history,
Very talented writer.
good history, and some interesting stories there. But yeah, you're right. He does kind of
I mean, speaking of
allude
books,
to.
from my book, I gotta get you because my book has a lot of interviews in it. I definitely have to interview you for that book because the first edition is gonna come out in English. Because contrary to belief, I know I on this channel I talk a lot in Spanish, but English is my first language. I was born in Cuba, but I was raised in America. I'm educated in the United States. I have my bachelor's degree from Florida National University. Even though I speak and read and write good Spanish, English is my first language.
Yeah. And I'm trying to work a little bit. Necesito trabajar on mi español, which I hope I'm picking up more words.
Now you will.
One actually one of the one small anecdote that I find where I've actually been able to communicate fairly well anytime that I've been in Cuba by using some. I always tell people, I promise them, you speak the broken English you can, I'll try and speak the broken Spanish that I can, and then in between, I just throw in player names and some broken French and try and pretend that's Spanish. So.
My question is that we have we in the baseball world we have a lot of good friends in common. How do you communicate with Norberto?
Yeah, so
Norberto pitcher for Cienfuegos.
Yep, for Cienfuegos. So we do send the occasional messages. So now, actually, what I do a lot of the time is, and my apologies in case they haven't been. People have been too polite to tell me, because typically I'll use Google Translate. Yeah. And send the messages in Spanish, yeah. And try and communicate that way. And also, actually, most recently when I was there, a friend of mine that was traveling with it, he had his Google Translate app on the phone, so we did that. So, and then at the same time, while we're talking, we're trying to teach each other a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of English, so it's worlds connecting. And I don't think anybody actually listens to me anyway, so it doesn't matter if I am speaking English or speaking Spanish. So.
No, you make a lot of valid points in English and in Spanish, brother. But what do you think is the future of the Cuban National Series? I mean, you've been down there. In fact, you've probably been down there more than I have in the last. I haven't been there in 40 years. So you've been
I've been at least once every year for basically the last decade and increasing on that. So it's interesting because I see a lot of sentiment out there and that the old adage. So I want to be careful with it because Cubans are still very passionate about the game. They always will be, but just like a lot of other fan bases, if you don't give them a winning product, and as more information comes online and they look at it and realize, what's kind of happening there, that they're losing eyeballs to soccer, they're losing eyeballs to Instagram and all of that.
I want to give you something that us Cubans always hold. This goes back to revolutionary times. Yep. Soccer will never be the national game of Cuba. Baseball will always be, because Martí played baseball. Baseball was always the game of the rebels, and soccer was always the game of the people that enslaved us. So baseball will always be king there. Trust me on this.
I hope this isn't blasphemy, but every time I see the famous Jose Martí statue, and he's holding his hands out like that, I'm like, there he is, showing the people his curveball grip.
But no, it's not blasphemous. It's something. But Jose Martí did play baseball. Yep. He liked baseball.
So I think, like I said, there are definite changes that need to occur. Some of them are happening.
Some changes need to occur here too.
Yeah.
We're a little bit too hard on the island. We need to promote change on the island, not to talk too much politics, because I don't like talking politics, But we need to promote change on that island too, and it was happening on the last
I
administration.
increasingly, yeah, I increasingly think that the desire for the agreement that was announced in 2018 before it was scrapped. At first, I thought that was maybe more Major League's ambition.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder if Cuba actually does realize more
I mean, I
that.
agree with the thing, but there was some parts of the thing that the agreement that I didn't agree. For example,
No.
why do you have to release a 34 prospect list that I can go sign? Why can't I go to Cuba and sign whatever prospect that I want to sign? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there were certain things, like, for example, the agreement, even though I wanted it to happen, was based on a lie. It was based on that the Feria Nacional and the Federation were not part of the Cuban government, and they are. So
Yeah.
they had to strike that down. But I want something to happen, but I want them to follow the. If you made them follow the agreement to the T, for example, that 25% or 15% signing bonus, that was going before the player was signed. That was like in Japan and in Mexico.
The posting system.
Yeah,
Yep.
and in Mexico too, they had the same system. But you had to make Cuba make sure they follow that, because that was supposed to go into the State Nacional for salaries, uniforms, and all that. With Cuba, everything is always a slippery slope, because you have. I don't think you should have to monitor anybody on how they follow agreements, but with Cuba, that's unfortunately it happens.
I think that there is more of a will there, and like I said, that Cuba did recognize. They said the right things for once on that.
Tony headed that.
Yeah, and because I think they realize. I mean, you know this number, but for instance, some calculations are, since 2016 alone, 400 baseball players have left the island, and the number could be bigger than that.
Since 2006, it could be close to 1,000. But that's an actual tribute to the talent on the island, because they've actually won a Caribbean World Series.
Oh, 100%. It's so what I think they realize is, because you look at any number, so 30 players played in Major League Baseball last year. That's an immense drain, obviously. Yeah. But here's the thing. If a player is a major league talent, he's going to find a way to get out, and that's why I think the posting system could work. That at least you have that guy for 7-8 years, so there can be some national pride. The Cuban series,
but then it goes back to political. Everything in Cuba is political. Yep. The American government is not going to allow us to do business with something that is part of the Cuban government. They have, if they come out and say and give autonomy to the Serie Nacional, which would be in their best interest, that would be better, because then that agreement will work. By the way, we have Diane George just joined in, a prospect. He's going to sign. Diane, dímelo, Diane. Saludo. Diane George is going to actually sign with the Colorado Rockies. He's been compared to Alexei Ramirez. But Cuba needs to make adjustments too if they want to make this agreement work. And not to touch on politics, but during this administration, I don't think there's ever going to be any agreement with Cuba.
No, I think we can both agree on that. And so whether or not that means the Federation can get more of its ducks in a row in the build up to it, like I said, they are saying some of the right things.
Everybody needs to get their ducks in a row, because they can't sit down and agree on anything. This agreement took 3 years.
I naive, and somewhat naive. I try to. Everybody says they're not naive, I guess, but I like to think I'm not naive. But I do hold out some hope that something that would seem as trivial as baseball could still be a lever that can connect.
I see more Cubans playing in the Mexican Baseball League. I see more Cubans playing in Japan. But I don't see any Cubans playing in Canada until they come to some sort of concrete agreement that an administration cannot strike down. I'm a Democrat. As long as you have a Republican administration, they're not going to agree with anything done with Cuba.
No, and so, but by the same token, you did point to some of the leagues and some of the options that are there. So I mean, we see obviously the pipeline that's been built with Japan. SoftBank Hawks have turned that into a dynasty.
Chiba signed a few.
The Yomiuri, obviously the Giants have.
Those are the Yankees of Japan. But the thing is with Yomiuri, it's a tough team to play for, and they're as demanding as the Yankees. But SoftBank has made basically Cuban players have won titles for SoftBank with Livan Moinelo, with Spain, and with Gracial.
Yeah.
Gracial was actually the MVP of the
Of the
Japanese series.
finals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, sorry, and sorry, I was thinking Chunichi as well. We see
well,
that,
yeah, no, Chunichi, you have
yeah,
Chunichi.
Ariel
Yeah,
Martinez in the minors and working
yeah,
his
Ariel
way up,
Rodriguez. You got Diane
yeah,
Viziedo. You had
yeah.
Alex Guerrero
Alex
played there.
Guerrero was there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the thing is with South Bank, they've combined Cuban talent on the island and off the island because you have Ariel Miranda play there.
yeah.
You have Barbaro Canizares play there. You had a couple good players play there. But the thing is, those leagues have restrictions on foreign players that you can sign. You see what I'm saying? Major League Baseball does not have that, and Mexico.
So, and that's where I wonder if there will ever be, because Japan has actually talked about. I think I saw a plan
Expansion.
where they're hoping to require more talent, and so that's where I wonder if they'll make a distinction between. Because you mentioned a number of the players. Obviously, some are there with the permission of the federation to come and go. Others are guys that got out, signed major league contracts, and now have made their way there and signed a different contract.
It'll be more with Mexico than in the Asian leagues because of the restrictions. Yeah. And then the thing is with some, like Taiwan is not going to sign any Cuban players based on the island due to political restrictions. Yeah. And South Korea either, due to political restrictions. Remember, Cuba and North Korea are allies. That's why they've never signed. They will play exhibitions with them, but they'll never sign a player based in Cuba. The only players that they're going to sign are players not based in Cuba. But even the Mexican League is not going to have a season this year. From what I'm hearing, the rumblings that they want players in the stands, because contrary to everybody else, Mexico makes their money with players in the stands. Cause
I can imagine.
Our friend Cesar Prieto, I was talking to him yesterday. Yep. He wanted to know what was happening, and I reached out to another friend of mine, which I'm not going to reveal, a source of mine in Mexico. He said that they're having a meeting tomorrow, and they're going to decide, but they're leaning towards not having a baseball season in Mexico. It was supposed to be a 48-game season, which is going to really kill and impact baseball worldwide. Basically, no baseball in Canada, no baseball in Mexico. And
it's unfortunate. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and that some of it makes sense. I guess that at least on this side of the continent, that Major League Baseball kind of has to be that trial balloon. They have the most to gain or the most to lose, and so if they can kind of go off without a hitch, we're getting pretty deep into the season to have not started that off. So unless some of those leagues can pivot and move to the fall, I mean, look at some of the structures that the NBA and the NHL are talking about, where they're trying to come back and pushing their seasons to the start of the new season. So if there's a will, but yeah, you're right. Mexico is building that pipeline as well. As you mentioned, Cesar was supposed to play with Jalisco.
Cesar, Lazaro, Carlos Juan Vieira, Frederick was supposed to play over there. They've had interest in signing Frank, but that never materialized. Andy Rodriguez is supposed to pitch over there.
Yosemar cousin was supposed to go as well, wasn't he? I thought I saw him on the list, and so
I didn't know. I haven't really talked to Yosemar, but I wouldn't doubt it because he's a big talent there in Cuba. He's one of the most. Yosemar could be, if he ever decides to leave, could be a major league pitcher. I saw him pitch against Team USA. He's very, 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 very talented. But
well, so yeah, we are seeing more. I mean, obviously, a lot of the young pitchers kind of get out earlier, and so him and we also mentioned
Andy Rodriguez.
Well, Andy Rodriguez and Yariel Rodriguez, who's playing with Chunichi, but they're kind of it's odd.
He needs to develop another pitch. When they had the series with USA, I sat with a lot of the scouts, and the consensus with the scouts was that he's a one-inning guy because he only throws a fastball and a slider, and rarely throws that slider. He needs to develop a third, maybe even a fourth pitch, because if they do sign him, he's a one-inning guy. And they were saying he wouldn't pass AA here if he just developed another pitch.
Well, so it's interesting. I actually, to pivot a little bit on that, I'm not saying you're wrong about that. I wonder if there's more of a path for some of these younger Cuban kids, because we're seeing obviously the opener concept But basically, the idea of segmenting the bullpen even further, the teams, if you think about what's typically the difference between a reliever and a starter, it's the ability to master that third pitch and to get through the lineup a third time. So if guys don't do that, a 2-pitch pitcher, as long as throws hard enough, and we're seeing,
that. And not to knock Ariel, because I've been following him in the Japanese minor leagues. He's been lights out, and even Ariel Martinez hitting 500.
Yep. Yeah, he's posted a couple of videos there and hit a couple homers. So hopefully he's gonna. I'm hoping to see he'll force his way onto the big clubs.
No, he will this year. I spoke to him the other day. He was very excited because Ariel was known more as a defensive pitcher, but the lights have turned on this year. The lights have turned on when it comes to hitting. Well, and he's ultra talented, and on top of that, he's a good kid too. He's a very I met him during the series. He's a very good kid.
Yeah, I met him in 12 Riviere a few years back when they were playing against the Can-Am team. And so, I mean, and if you think about it, he's kind of at that perfect age now. He's 25 or 26, so it's the age where if you're gonna figure it out, is a good time to do it.
A lot of not scouts, a lot of people on the island compared to him to Ariel Pestano due to his build and the way he hits, and hopefully if he can be half of that, he's on his way.
Well, and so that's why it's interesting, because I was actually talking about this with someone the other day, that the one position, if you look at it, that really has never broken through, not that Ariel, not certain if he's a major league prospect, but never want to cut anybody off the views on that. But we've never seen a catcher kind of make it. Actually, yes, I remember I was talking with a buddy of mine who knows Frank as well. Well, there's some of that, and it could be very well that, because they were asking about Frank Morrow, and I said the reality is Frank, probably his defense was major league caliber, but the bat obviously wouldn't have played. But even that being said,
in the Caribbean World Series, Frank Camilo hits better than Giovanni Alarcon. In fact, that game when Grandma played Caguas, Frank hits a home run and Frank hits a double off the wall and he drives in 3 runs. I hit him up today and I told him, hey, tomorrow they're gonna test you for steroids, and he laughed. I've never seen you hit like that. But we both interview a lot of Cuban players, right? What was your most interesting, with your videos? What was your most interesting interview?
So I've gotten to meet a few of the players over time, and maybe part of the reason that I'm able to, let's say, fly under the radar, because
well, you're not Cuban.
Cuba, yeah, there's that aspect of it, and the fact that obviously I respect the game, respect the players. Actually, the coolest experience for me is most recently when I was in Havana. Before the day started, because I don't want to make myself sound too bad that I spent the whole time poolside drinking beer. But
we will both do that. I'm going to do that in Havana too. So don't worry about it.
Spend a little bit of time doing that. And at the pool bar, an older gentleman was wearing a Chinese, looked like a local, was wearing a Chinese Taipei baseball hat. So like I said, that's odd. That has to have come from one of the players or whatnot. So I actually approached him, and he spoke fairly decent English, and found out that back in the 60s, Freddie Cesar Romero was a pitcher for La Habana.
Okay.
And so he's a gentleman that I've interviewed on on my YouTube page there. So every afternoon, I grab a bottle of rum and head over to the park by the hotel and meet up with him and a bunch of his friends there, and kind of exchange baseball stories and the old times. And in fact, a cool aspect of it is that where he's considered alumni, he gets priority seating at Latino Americano. Yeah, so they respect the old guard, and so we went to one of the games together, and then actually one of the afternoons while we were there, Alexander Maeta stopped by and to visit. The guys were kind of tickled pink. They're like, who's this gringo that knows all of these players and knows that?
Well, I've actually developed a good friendship with Maeta's brother, Tony.
So yeah, I haven't met Tony, but
He's actually a
I've
bigger
gotten
guy
to.
than Mayetta. I wonder why he doesn't play baseball. If you look at Tony's bigger than Mayetta. He has more of a baseball player's body. I don't understand that. But
They can. Well, I mean, my brother looks like he's fit too, but he's not near the baseball player I am. So I got to get that dig in.
yeah,
But
this is true.
I've gotten to spend some good quality time, like you say, with Frank, who hosts me
My
anytime
brother, man,
that I'm
good
there, and
guy.
with his wife and his beautiful daughters there, and so well,
Yeah,
that's been
very
opening
beautiful.
up, and over time, more players kind of one of the cool things is more players reach out now that they've discovered through the internet here, and to see if I have photos and share them, and more
Well,
guys hope that I can come visit and do photos. So.
for my book, I'm going to use a few of your photos. Definitely, I have them saved. I haven't released the book because of this pandemic, and I'm waiting.
Hmm.
I'm waiting on the only interview I have left is probably you. I did a live with Louis T. I'm waiting on the footage from my
Nice,
son
excellent.
because I have to transcribe it, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
interview Peter Cachero. You know who he is? Peter Cachero.
Uh, no.
Well, he's Cuban. He was raised here, but he used to be a DAA agent. He's MLB security for Cuba.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, Cuba when they have the actual uh, friendship series.
Yep.
I actually met him because
In
Hino
North
Velez
Carolina.
sent MLB security to investigate me because I was wearing a sweatsuit, a Cuban sweatsuit. And when he asked me, he's like, "Why are you wearing it?" I'm like, "Because it's a free country." And he looked at me and he laughed. And we developed like a. I talk to him all the time on the phone. We developed a great friendship.
So, no, looking forward to that. And yeah, and if you want to reconnect on that
No,
and
no, I'm
interview me,
definitely.
if I add some flavor to it.
No, no,
So
you definitely because I'm not. See, the object of my book is to reach every aspect of Cuban baseball. Cuban baseball
mhm.
on each side of the pond. People relate to Cuban baseball. I have an interview with a lot of journalists over there, which people are gonna find a little bit controversial.
Yeah,
Julita Osendi Diaz. She's a great friend of mine. I interviewed
yeah,
her. But then I also have
yeah, Matt.
George Ebro here, George Morahone here. I have a
Yeah,
lot of people that are on this side. I just want to touch every aspect of Cuban baseball. Something that our good friend, not to beat a dead horse, God rest his soul, Peter did not touch
yeah,
in some of his books. We need to expand
yeah.
Cuban baseball.
There's room, and I'm hoping I can help to do that in any
No,
way
you
possible.
definitely will. I have to
Sorry,
reach out.
phone. I just got the message here that my phone's dying out, so we'll try and
No,
wrap this up quickly.
let's
But
close it out,
absolutely, let's try this again soon. Hopefully, I can get a
brother man.
better rig because I'm going to
Whenever
go
you
back and
want.
look at this video and have to lie to people and say that I actually know how to work a camera. So
Nah, whenever you want, my brother. You know what? Let's close it on the most interesting thing you saw when you were in Havana, like something that you would never see in Canada or in the United States.
uh, I that's actually put me on the spot there
Nah, doesn't have to be
because.
anything that
Yeah,
that you want to reveal.
no. So what I love about Cuba is the architecture. I mean, that might be a cop out answer.
No, that's a good answer. That's a good answer.
No, but it's interesting to see. There's little quirks like on the spot, like things that maybe because I've been there so many times now, I take for granted
Well,
versus looking and going, that's kind
Spanish
of funny.
architecture, because they haven't fixed anything in 50 years. So stuff to be
Yeah.
standing means the Spaniards did a pretty good job.
Yeah, well, there's that. Make no mistake about it. And then also you can tell who has remittances coming or
Yeah,
did,
yeah,
and so that's where it can be interesting that you'll
my
see
family,
beautiful restored building, a beautiful restored
my
building next to
family.
something that looks like it was
Yeah,
hit by a mortar. So, but it definitely makes actually. So here's one thing that I will say. I'll say on a positive.
beautiful people.
Havana's the safest city I've ever been to,
Well, nobody's
and
armed. That makes it safe.
yeah. Yeah, well, we're not here in Canada either, but
Yeah,
yeah. So the people are wonderful. It's safe, and that's the one thing that I would say
Cubans are very warm
if
people.
anybody sees this and they have reservations on whether they could or would
Yeah,
visit, the one thing I always tell people is twofold.
I always
Especially because Canadians a lot of times have a little bit of a different objective. If you're looking for fancy 5-star, doesn't exist. But if you want your dollar to go further, you want to meet authentic people, you want to be able to go into the capital and walk around
Good food.
anywhere, and good food, and be safe, and then
I mean, I
by all
always tell
means,
people,
Havana's the place to be.
I always tell people to venture into Cuba. I'm not pro
Yeah.
not going to Cuba. I mean, I'm saying I'm not anti going to Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to go to Cuba and break down those barriers. We need to do that.
Yep.
Tourism is the best way, Phil. Phil, we definitely need to do this again. And if possible, we need to meet up in Havana in January. That will be magical because we'll make
Yep.
great video with all the connections that we
Absolutely.
have.
Perfect. Absolutely looking forward to it. So I just want to finish off by saying Happy Canada Day and Happy
Likewise,
Independence Day. And
have a few mimosa nices for me.